I'm Maria. I did the prison indie class in the fall of 2008, and I'm also doing a communications indie class that's happening in the summer of 2009.
Yeah, so do people have to like know each other before they get involved in indie class, or like what works best?
I think it helps a lot if people know each other, and it helps a lot if people are at the same level with the material, obviously, but that doesn't have to be like a finite rule for all of the classes that happen. I think what's really basic is just that people have to have a certain level of respect for each other when they're in the class, which also involves a certain level of responsibility in terms of understanding the way in which you fit into a collective class working. So for instance, doing the readings and knowing that when you do the readings, the discussion in the class is a lot better, but also for logistical stuff like deciding when the class is going to meet and how often and what readings are going to be on the syllabus and things like that, like being open to those discussions both taking a while, because consensus as a process isn't a fast process at all. It isn't an efficient process by any sort of like capitalist productive standards. But I mean, it definitely holds you accountable to the people around you. And then that way, when you finish the class, you can know that like everyone wanted to do the readings that you're doing, and everyone was involved in the discussions that happened, and you get a better atmosphere out of it, I think, for sure.
How do you think the class worked, like if it's all students doing the research, how do you think it worked without having any experts or props there?
I think you end up creating an environment where it's more knowledge sharing, and there's less of a like top-down, like when you have an expert, when you have a teacher, it's assumed that the teacher has more to tell you, they have more knowledge, they have more power, so it's like they don't have to listen to you. Whereas when everyone is at the same level, or even if they're not necessarily at the same level, but they recognize that there isn't an expert and there isn't like that everyone can learn something from everyone else, it makes it a lot more horizontal, and you get rid of some of the weird power dynamics that happen in classrooms in the university where certain people feel like they can't raise their hands or they feel like they can't participate in a discussion and things like that because what they say isn't going to be valued, and you just change what's valued in the room, and it's pretty awesome.
You ever find there were problems with not having someone who had specialized knowledge about the subject you were talking about?
I don't think there were any problems. I mean, there were weeks when people hadn't done the readings, for instance, and we would have a go-around at the beginning of every class and say, like, hi, I'm so-and-so, and here's where I'm at today, because I think it's important to, like, say where everyone's at mentally and physically, and to just put that out on the table when you're going to start a discussion with people. And some people would say, like, I've been really busy, I haven't been able to do the readings, but then those people would also end up bringing something different to the discussion that maybe they wouldn't have been able to bring if they had done the readings, and it just, like, allowed things to go in a different way, or allowed the discussion to happen in a different way. So, I don't know, I don't think it ended up being a problem.
What was the most positive part of Indyclass for you, Maria?
I think the positive part was bringing Indyclass into a department where, because I did the indie class on prisons, but I did it in the architecture department, and I think the architecture department at McGill especially talks a lot about participatory design and what does that mean, and like let's all have like discussions with the people that we're building for, and it's really important for architects to be having those talks, but a lot of the classes in the architecture school don't cater to that at all and don't have any sort of like format for how that should happen. They just tell people to do it and then people are supposed to go do it, and the format of Indyclass definitely could have been used for like a participatory design project, and so it was cool to introduce those ideas to the prof who was advising me, and then have him see the links between like what we were doing and how he works and things like that. So that was pretty positive. So learning a lot about prison justice in a class setting was really awesome, and then there had to be a way for it to make sense outside of the classroom too. And I think that was something we tried to do from the beginning in Indyclass, was to like connect the class itself to a community, and so that the university didn't become this like ivory tower disconnected from Montreal sort of thing. And so in Montreal there's a ton of prison justice organizing, and I ended up getting involved in a group that does work with lifers. And it just became, like, I mean, obviously when you do work with lifers, it's a long-term project, and a lot of prison justice organizing is a long-term project because, like, prison sentences are long. And so we ended up getting in touch with this group, and then a couple of us got involved and have been going, like, once a week. to meet and talk about different issues and things like that. But like really, the class laid the groundwork for why I could do that kind of organizing. It like gave me the framework of analysis that I needed to make that step. So.
Could you just specify what a lifer is?
A lifer is someone who has been convicted and given a life sentence. So in Canada, it's 25 years to life in prison.